what you're highlighting is the gap between what's being done. So you're being sold something and then it's being passed on to someone else who's then telling their crew to go do this job.
Hey, I was walking through my neighborhood. I saw your vehicle. I thought there was some things that you maybe should know, and just here's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it.
If you hand me a paper straw, I'm gonna just take out a lighter, which I'm just gonna burn it.
Welcome to the Brand Nerd Podcast. I'm Mitch Metter. Join me as we nerd out over great brands, study the latest business tech, and learn proven strategies from experts and entrepreneurs. Let's get started.
What up, nerds? Welcome back to season 0 of the Brand Nerd Podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about opportunity. I am worried about the state of the local home service industry. And here's why I'm worried. I'm walking around my neighborhood and I'm seeing all these different homes that have trucks parked out front, and they're all these different local service companies. There's construction, there's flooring, there's roofing, there's HVAC, there's electrical. I've seen it all, and I've kind of made it a little project that as I'm walking around, I just take snapshots of all of these. And the thing is there is a lot of opportunity out there. The other side of the coin is there are big companies, whether it's a big local company that's really geared towards sales and pushing themselves, spending a lot on sales and marketing, or is it a national franchise or a national business that, you know, goes from location to location, and they've got their built-in processes and things that they do. But the problem with those companies is they deliver less value for more money. Like, they have to. That's the way. They've got tons of overhead. They're techs, as they come, they're often selling techs. Like they have to sell while they're there to service, you know, so they're upcharging you. They're convincing people they need things they don't need. And I'm worried because we've already got a shortage of people that want to go into this industry. You know, we've got, at the end of the day, the USA needs service businesses. Like, this is a patriotic instinct that I have here. We need to build more really high quality local service brands, and we got to put the service back in local service businesses that are there to serve and not just upsell, not just try to deliver as little value as they can while still, you know, justifying their pricing. And honestly, what it comes down to is businesses have to adopt a brand mentality over a business mentality. Local business owners have to stop thinking strictly about the work and think more about how to get it out there. We talked recently about the framework, know you, like you, trust you. And this is why I'm so passionate about it, because people need to be thinking about brand. They need to get the word out for their services because they're doing great work, but they're not getting enough customers, and it's hurting everybody. It's hurting them. It's hurting the people that are there to be served. So, Pete, I'm a little riled up about this.
I can tell. I can see this. It's weighing heavily on your heart, and for good reason. I wonder at what point brands, I should say businesses, hit the point where they feel the need to offer as little value as possible while retaining the best price point. Mm-hmm. And is that a natural progression, or is that a tendency that ought to be avoided? You know, and can you grow without hitting that point?
I think you know, last week we did an episode all about scaling your business. We talked about you can go up market, you can go down market, you can go
lateral,
adjacent, you can go broader, you can go narrower. And what happens is,
or niche,
right? Narrower or niche or niche
or niche.
And so the thing that keeps, the thing that these companies are doing as they grow is they are going down market mostly. And what they're doing is they are relying on sales and marketing, and they're hiring, whether it's service techs who are sales, or they've got we've all seen, window companies going door to door, to put new windows in your house. And even, there's roofing companies that use tactics like insurance, insurance approved by insurance on their yard sign and stuff like that. Every roofing company can work with insurance companies, but some companies, kind of frame themselves as like, we're the ones, or the storm chasers is a real thing. They'll literally go to a neighborhood and knock on doors and say, hey, there was a hailstorm in the area. Can we inspect your roof? Because, you might be able to get a new roof from insurance. And then what they do is, this is inside baseball, but listeners who own local service companies know about this. What a lot of those companies do is they sub out the work. So they bring in a different company to do the work. And I actually saw this in my neighborhood as I'm walking around. There's a local company that does this exact strategy. And they had one guy on the scene from this company who was overseeing the job. Literally this guy was standing on the sidewalk, hands on hips, watching as all of these, roofers were on the roof. It was you could tell it was a low wage crew by the diversity of the crew, if you will.
I hear you.
And the, which is not a problem, but the problem is, that the service that they're delivering is not even under their control completely.
Correct. Yeah. There's what you're highlighting is the gap between what's being done. So you're being sold something, and then it's being passed on to someone else who's then telling their crew to go do this job. And so like, there's not that clear path to like, oh, I'm doing the job. Yeah. I'm the one talking to you about the opportunity to do a job, and I'm the one who's actually gonna do it. And yeah, no. I think you're spot on. That's super interesting. I wonder for service brands, when you think about all the opportunities that local service brands have to make an impact from a pure visual perspective. So you say business to brand mentality, right? So there's that shift, but part of the brand is the visual stuff. And, you have so many different touch points as a service provider to make an impact from just the visual aspect of your brand, right? So I would call that your visual identity, but you have billboards, you have the mobile billboard, which is of course your vehicle or your fleet of vehicles. You have yard signs, you have handouts, door hangers, that kind of stuff. And utilizing that space as precious, this is precious real estate, all of it, to make an impact on the people around us, which is, to your point, you're going on these walks and you're seeing a lot of different types of things, right? You're seeing yard signs and trucks and all that.
Yeah, I've made it a part of my daily routine. I'm trying to do the whole 10,000 steps things. And the best way for me to do that with a job that has me around the office a lot is I just start my day by going on a 3-mile walk around the neighborhood. And it gets me, most of the way to those 10,000 steps. And so as I'm walking around, I've been averaging, half a dozen or so yard signs or vehicles. And these are new because some of them are there every time I walk by, but there's 6 or so new. And I've taken pictures of them too, which is a little bit awkward. I try not to be seen taking the pictures. Yeah, it can be creepy.
So you're saying you average about 6 vehicles or whatever as you're coming across.
Yeah, brand new. I'm in the past week I've probably built up 25 or 30 different companies that have all been in this one neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's what's got me on this opportunity kick is like, man, there are so many people who need services. Like I think about it in terms of like, how often do I call a service tech out to my house? Maybe it's once every 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not a whole lot.
But you're still seeing the high volume of
stuff. So you don't think about it.
Yeah.
I've got kind of my go-to people, but then as you're walking around, you think about, okay, I'm walking past at least 100 homes, maybe 200.
Right.
And then, in some apartments and other things. And so when you think about all of those homes and how often they need service and all the different things they may need service on. So there are so many that are suffering from just like simple branding mistakes, whether it's like the sizing of the text on the vehicle is too small. you know, and I'm like, well, nobody's going to see that unless they are right up on it.
Right.
You know, which, you know, I just want them to know, like, the point of having this logo on the side of your vehicle isn't so that, you know which one's yours.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's there as an advertisement. I would hope that's their mentality. And so you need to have your company name really big. You need to have your phone number, your website, what you do, all of that needs to be on there, and it needs to be clear, not just in the words that you use, but how it's positioned on the vehicle.
Sure. Part of that is the shift to the brand mentality, though, because if you're just putting your logo on there, that would be a very business thing to do. Let's just get our logo on there. But when you start to think about from branding, you're thinking about visual impact.
Yeah.
How are you reaching people visually?
Right.
And part of that is having the logo at the right size, the phone number, all that stuff, and telling people what you do in a short amount of time.
And when we talk about know you, like you, trust you, if you just slap a logo on there, all you're doing is know you.
Yeah.
Maybe. They might not remember. They might see you in that moment. It might be in one ear out the other type of thing. You know, so we, you know you is just the first step. You have an opportunity to do that, at least get them to like.
Yeah.
You know, trust is
definitely
obviously
can.
typically requires a little bit more due diligence or some sort of referral or a testimonial or something, but you can at least get them to like something that makes them want to call you.
If you have an extraordinary vehicle wrap with character and something that's fun or just like looks really nice, you can get someone to like you before they even talk to you.
Yeah, the best vehicle I saw was a full wrap. On the side of the vehicle, they had like a family, you know, all kind of huddled together in their front yard outside of their home, and it was one of those mechanical companies. So they did HVAC, plumbing, they did a whole bunch of different things, but obviously had thought a lot about the actual brand and appearance of this vehicle, because as I was walking by, I was going, yeah, I would call that company.
Right.
I know nothing about them.
Certainly more so than the other ones. So,
sure. Yeah. Exactly. So, I just think it's really important. I thought, hey, I've got some examples here from my, my photo journey, and I'm going to keep doing this. I think this is a great like exercise for me to stay like,
walking is great exercise.
And frankly, I'm going to reach out to a lot of these companies, you know, and say, hey, I was walking through my neighborhood. I saw your vehicle. I thought there was some things that you maybe should know, and just here's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to ask them for business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just gonna let them know. I would love for them to, of course, hire us to do some branding for them.
Excuse me.
But that's my intention here. I'm coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm worried for these companies.
Yeah.
I'm worried for them because I'm looking at what they're doing, and you know, you say, okay, they spent tens of thousands of dollars on this vehicle as a business. They spent a little bit of money to slap something on there. Some of them spent a good bit of money to put their logo on there, but they're forgetting key elements. Right. And so the idea is, don't just spend money, because you might actually be wasting money. You know what I mean? If you're going to spend money, spend it with care. Take a little bit of time to think about what you're doing. And that requires somebody who, like us, who thinks about these things on a regular basis, and going to a trusted expert to help you out with these things.
Yeah. Putting the logo on anything isn't enough. It's just not enough. It would be like, you talk about having like salt. You use the salt analogy of putting salt into something to make it more, you know, tasteful. And I think things need to be mixed in, right? So if you just took salt and put it in the middle of like a dish, and literally didn't stir it in, didn't cook it in to everything else, you would just have one spot that looks salty. And I share that to make the comparison between throwing your logo on a vehicle is not enough. You need to mix it thoroughly through your process to like develop something that, you know, it's not just about the logo. It's about how you're communicating. I've seen people with bad logos communicate effectively, you know? So like, obviously I want that person to have a better logo, but I've seen vehicles that have a not as nice of a logo, But they understood like sizing and spacing and all those things better than some companies that have really nice branding. And so you keeping that in mind is like important. But I'd love to see some of the photos you got going on.
Yeah, and I'm going to do my best, to the listeners at home. If you're listening to this and not watching this, I'll say this might be the opportunity for you to check out our Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah, plug it.
Because that is the two mediums where we actually post the full episode in video, and we'll throw screenshots up, and we'll probably be sensitive to everybody and blur out important details. But I want to start off with a company that just to the knows nothing about design eye, to the regular, Joe homeowner eye might think this is a nice logo because design wise, it's not too bad. And now I think they would immediately identify that this is too small and the phone number is comically small on the side of this. But this is a company that does excavation, concrete, utilities, and paving. Okay,
let's do it.
And the phone number is by far the smallest thing on the vehicle. It is smaller than the handle.
Wow.
This is just the logo is only on the door panel.
Okay.
And the phone number is literally smaller than the handle. Like if you're thinking in terms of width, it's smaller than the handle of the truck. Like, so the only way to see the phone number is to be right up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. What a failed opportunity to get someone to see and contact you.
Now, I want to point out two other things about this. And again, I'm not ripping this apart because
it's an observation.
I'm just saying this is one.
An observation.
The company is called Construction Masters Services. Okay.
Construction Masters Services.
I don't have a problem with that name. It's, Construction Masters. That's a decent enough name. Like, I'm not going to sit here, but what they just have a big logo that says CMS, and around this logo they have some sort of like bird of prey, but it's just a vector stamp type thing. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hand the phone to you so you can take a look at this. And then I also want to show you, don't let me forget, there's a second image of this vehicle. They've got a window treatment on the back of the truck, and I want to show that to you as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So did I describe that pretty well?
Yep. Yeah, so it's like a phoenix, a red sort of phoenix bird type of thing around the letters CMS, which represent Construction Master Services.
I would always caution people when you're naming your business, if you just are going to use an acronym like CMS, I'm not saying you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can build a brand with anything, but recognize that those are just letters that don't say anything to anybody.
Right.
Construction Masters would say a lot more.
Yeah. I would make that the logo. I would add that.
If I was allowed to just go in and do whatever I wanted, that would be one of my pieces of advice to them. Yep.
I would also say the phone number is a great example. The website is a great example of things being too small.
Yeah.
The DOT, the DOT legally, with the US DOT number on vehicles, legally has to, if I remember correctly, has to be 3 inches high or 2.5 inches high, meaning that it can get very wide.
Right.
And so in this case, the DOT is actually communicated more effectively.
By far the largest.
And the reason why it needs to be 2.5 inches high is because people need to, the police need to be able to see that number.
Yeah.
Especially for big trailer trucks and stuff. If they don't have that, the police can pull them over.
Right.
And, so yeah, and then I would also just, again, I'm wearing my design hat, but I agree with you. CMS, even now, client management systems or softwares is the same acronym.
So many things.
So many things for CMS. I would emphasize Construction Masters. And then the Phoenix, to me, I would just, from a purely design perspective, sure, you might have a thing for Phoenixes. You're like, I want to incorporate that. It might not even be a Phoenix. Right. I read it as a Phoenix because it's red and it has that vibe. But part of logo creation or development is appropriateness.
Right.
And is something appropriate to the brand, right? Are you creating something that's appropriate?
And it could be.
Could be.
Let's say their slogan was like,
rising from
exactly
the dirt, the rubble or something.
If they were doing like there's companies that specialize in, like, if you have a fire in your home or something, that would be
amazing. Correct. That would be, and then
rising from the ashes.
Yeah, you brand everything around that language, and all of a sudden the Phoenix makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But in this case, I don't know why the Phoenix makes sense, and so just be mindful of that.
Yeah. So I want to show you this other picture of them, and I'm not going to give too much context because I want you to see the back of the truck now, because the crazy thing is all this stuff we've been saying about this company in terms of what we expected them to do might not even be what they actually do. So check this out.
Interesting. So on the back, they have a one-way window vinyl, which is your ability to see out of it, but not, from the outside it looks like a graphic, but the inside the person can see the outside. But this particular vinyl says, now hiring flaggers, thecmsteam.com. And then it has their website, their phone number. I wonder if they do construction, but they also need flaggers. I know that there's third-party flag. Like in Pennsylvania, we have Flagger Force, which is the main guys that work with the state. But I know
they have amazing branding.
I think so. At least it's effective. I think
you know exactly what they are. Correct. There's other companies that specialize in that are terrible. I'd love to get into that. There's one in particular that drives me nuts because they just have their name and a picture of a cone.
Yeah.
To their truck. But anyways.
Yeah. I think no, it's interesting. I mean, no
manufactured cones. Okay, here's the other thing about this. You read it, the cmsteam.com, but their designer didn't think about the fact that this truck has a toolbox
on the back, so it's covering the website.
It's half covering the website, and you can see the angle that I took this picture from.
Yep.
I can see it, but you can imagine if it's a Honda Civic behind him, there's no way they're reading that website.
No, designers, one of the things that I learned when I was designing on vehicles, that it's just you need to understand the use case. I will not design something if I don't understand how it's going to be used. I mean, how many times have you given me a project and I ask you, what is this going on? Like, what is it going to be? If you don't understand what the end goal is, you can't create an effective anything.
Yeah.
And designers, you cannot get away with that. Like, you're not, you're not grandfathered into that rule. It's a hard set rule. You need to understand the use case. And in this case, a great question would be like, hey, let me see the truck. Let's see the truck before we design this back window. What does that look like? And then get a feel for that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't have made that mistake. Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, but
it's a good example.
This is an industry that I've only seen pop up. If they do in fact specialize in flaggers, which is a fun word, frankly. But if they specialize in flaggers and these are the people that redirect traffic when there's a active construction zone. And honestly, this particular project that was going on, there was a HVAC company and the local gas utility company was
UGI.
there. Yeah, UGI. But that meant, so they probably were there just as the flaggers.
Right.
It was also a gold mine for my little walking around my neighborhood experiment. I got 3 pictures in one. But yeah, that to me that was just super fascinating. Like, to be like, okay, this is a company that was so close, like with that big banner on the back, like that's a great banner. Like, there's almost nothing I would change about that except that toolbox that's sitting right over top of your website.
Yeah. It goes back to, I mean, we don't want to spend too much time on each of these, but it goes back to know you.
Yeah.
I cannot know you, which is the first step of know you, like you, trust you. I cannot know you if your vehicle on the side says Construction Masters Services with a Phoenix and it's CMS, and I'm like, oh, they do construction. Then I walk around and now you have Flagger Force advertising on the back. I don't know what you do. I can assume, but you have to give clarity. So even if on the bed of the truck, right? If they said construction, Flagger Force Services, something else, like full contract construction services, Flagger Force Services, and then something else, whatever. 3 bullet points would have given clarity to what that company does.
The next one I want to talk about here is one that I saw as I was walking through. And this one was interesting too, because I walked by and saw a white van parked outside of this home, and I saw them, I saw some, I said hi to the guys. There was two guys in the truck, one guy standing on the sidewalk. I just said hi as I was walking by, good morning. And I was like, that's interesting. That's just an unmarked van, which typically means they're a subcontractor of some sort. And I don't actually think they did the roof, because currently it's not a new roof, but this yard sign was in when I walked by the next day. And it's the classic example, insurance approved roof is over top of the thing with a big arrow, although the font in my opinion is too small for somebody just driving by. They also, again, it's another example of a logo, and just in my opinion, just too much going on a yard sign. When it comes to a yard sign, I'm a big fan of minimalism and trying to get as much information. I'm thinking about cars driving by, like I'm walking by, so I have all the time in the world to read your yard sign.
Sure.
But most of your visual identity from that identification is coming from a car just cruising by.
Right.
And you need to get their attention and give them some sort of information that makes them recognize you. So anyways, just to describe, it's a black sign, yellow, goldish letters. It's got their logo. Their logo is simple. And then it says, call today for your free insurance inspection, get approved tomorrow. And then it's got some sort of a certification badge, and the phone number is sizable. So anyways, I just wanted to give you a chance to take a look at that.
So they have a rider. So what this is a yard sign, traditional yard sign, which is 24 by 36, I believe. And then they have a rider sign on top, which the rider sign is that extra little piece that slides in, which is where it's a big arrow that says insurance approved roof. Way too much information, I think. It's called Mint Remodeling Group.
And
at
first I was like, that's weird. And then I thought of some people say like, that's mint.
That's
like,
mint.
Maybe that's
mint
what they
condition
mean, like mint
or something. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
It just says call today for your free insurance inspection. Get approved tomorrow. So, and then their phone number, and then it has another little logo on the bottom there that probably is some type of like verification logo, certification logo.
Like some sort of.
Yeah, I think.
But it's so small that my camera couldn't even pick up.
Yep.
The details of it.
I don't mind the rider with the arrow.
I think that's good.
I think that's effective. I just think it should just say call today, get approved tomorrow, or call today, approval tomorrow, phone number.
Right.
Even that would help minimize the information. So
or just get approved.
Get approved.
Get approved.
It's implied. That's another thing. People forget how implication works and how you don't have to hand feed people.
Yeah.
We underestimate people's intelligence sometimes. I'm not saying there's a lot of validity in making sure it's very simple. Like we talk about the caveman test sometime. Does your website pass the caveman test? It should be simple. But if you have a phone number, you're implying to call. You don't necessarily need to say all the time. You don't need to always say call now, specifically when you're talking about a yard sign, because you're looking to create a minimalistic design, So on a yard sign, a call to action like call now isn't always necessary.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, on the website and other places, it might be more appropriate. I'm not against CTAs. I'm just saying which call to actions. But I'm just saying sometimes like the yard sign should just have the phone number, and that's enough for people to be like, I'm going to call them if you need that service.
Yeah. I would say the exception is, and whenever possible, I think this is what you should do. Get the shortest website URL you can.
Yeah.
Or even get a second URL that just redirects to your main URL. So a lot of people don't understand that, like, for example, our URL here is thebrandnerd.com, but like for the podcast, I set up bnpod.com.
Yeah.
Because it's just nice and short and it's easy to remember, and it redirects to wherever I want it to go.
Yeah.
And people don't always understand that you could do that. So like, Mint could buy some sort of, Mint's a nice 4-letter word. I guarantee you it's not available, but something, Mint Roof or something,
mintroof.com,
.com, .co, .net, whatever, and redirect it to their longer, URL.
I mean, there's always like, a little bit of more sleazy tactics that are like, don't Google mintroof.com. Like if you just had a black yard sign that said like, don't
Yeah.
You know, like just
Or
doing something playful like that.
There's a campaign here locally, in one of the township just north of here, that they keep building warehouses. It's a big thing. People build warehouses and without a contract for anybody to use them. But you know, Lancaster County is nicely suited or situated between like New York, Philadelphia, Washington D.C. Like we've got, you know, so like people can build warehouses here and easily ship goods to different to these major metropolitan areas out of Lancaster. So there's a campaign by local residents that just says no more warehouses with a big QR code.
Yeah.
And so like you can drive by, scan the QR code.
Yeah.
You know, 80% of the yard sign is a QR code. It's black and white.
Yeah.
So that's a really, and I thought like that could easily be adopted by a company like you, who even cares about your logo being on there. Frankly, you could say insurance approved, big QR code, and people would just be like, what's that even mean?
What is that? Yeah.
You'd probably get some hits.
I forget which one I've seen on the highway, but I see some of those on the highway where it's like, don't Google this or don't look up that.
Yeah.
It's so enticing.
There's been some famous like Super Bowl commercials that were essentially that. I mean, I think this year one company ran one that was just a QR code
the whole time. It was like 30 seconds of a QR code. I remember that. Yeah.
Amazing.
Lovely. All right.
I didn't use it, but everybody else in the room did.
Yeah. They all.
Like, I don't need to because everybody else is.
They all got a virus. It was just like a hacker that like wanted to give the whole world or all of America a virus.
Yeah.
And they spent like millions of dollars for 30 seconds of a QR code, and literally they download it, takes you to a website, instant virus, control over your phone, world domination, the apocalypse. Everyone's dead.
So I have another one I want to share with you, and this one I don't know. I don't know exactly what I think about this. It's like a classic old school landscaping logo. And the thing that stood out to me was like, it's on a bright red truck. Like this is a common thing. People like, if I buy an interesting color, you know what, so you might know better than me. Like, you know, these fleet vehicles, typically manufacturers will make them in white and black, pretty standard. Red's pretty standard. Occasionally they have some interesting ones. Like one of the companies I work with actually does fleet vehicles. And like, I remember one of the salesmen was complaining because they ordered like a baby blue, and he's like, nobody's going to buy this.
Yeah.
You know, like they actually buy the vehicles without necessarily a customer in mind. And so it was just an interesting, like, but anyways, they obviously bought a red fleet vehicle, or work truck model, you know, and they put their logo on it. But of course it's a landscaping company. So like typically you would associate like green as being more landscape. So red was interesting to me because I was like, whoa, like, does that work? I don't know. It's interesting. So here, I just want you to check out this logo because it's a little old school.
So bright fire truck red truck, and the logo is Becker Landscaping. And just has a kind of a sunset gradient, trees, which is this like clip art of trees. It says Becker Landscaping, and then it says and lawn, probably and lawn services or lawn something. And then their phone number. So I'll say the phone number is a good size. It could be
bigger.
It could be bigger, but that's a good size, I think, for that use, like on that driver's side door. I think it works. I think it's a choice, and it's like you can get to a point where sometimes it's just subjective. It's aesthetic. If they like the idea of a bunch of red trucks pulling up for a job, cool, it works.
Does it line up with your business objectives? You know, because this is it. Like, if somebody came to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm pretty sure this company had a contract with the HOA because I was in a part of the neighborhood that's under an HOA, and I saw some of their folks out weed whacking and mowing and everything, all wearing orange shirts.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I was like, why not red? But anyways, you know, maybe that's like maybe red's not one of the colors you can wear when you're in construction. I don't know. But anyways, the idea behind, you know, I can imagine a scenario where they're like, hey, we don't really want every homeowner calling us. We're really after these HOA contracts, but we want some brand recognition. You know, and we want these bright red trucks so that, you know, people kind of notice us, you know, as we're coming to take care of their lawn or whatever. And I could imagine that being a fairly effective brand strategy for them.
Right. I think one of the things I'll mention about this logo is just, I think it's a good example of like logos that it might not be the coolest logo in the world, right? But you can make it cool. So like if you had that big logo there on the back of a shirt, right? And then on the front of the shirt, you had a cool little script, just a pocket size or like across the middle that said like, their slogan or something real minimal. And it's on a red t-shirt and everybody kind of wore it, or they had hats made that just had like Becker landscaping on it. Like, again, it's not always about rebrand. Obviously, like sometimes designers, we want to push you towards a rebrand, but sometimes it's just how do we tweak your logo a little bit and add some validity around it.
Yeah.
And kind of build out your brand in a different way.
All right, let's do one more example here, because I got this is not a local service company. This is a company that every single person knows, but I just want to talk about it. I was walking through the other day, and there's a U-Haul truck.
Let's go. U-Haul.
U-Haul. Say what you want about U-Haul, but they're obviously the name of the game when it comes to renting a moving van.
Penske? Wait, you gonna go to Penske? Yeah. Come on, give me a break.
Penske, and what's the other one?
They have the containers. They try to.
Oh yeah.
I forget what those are called. Pods.
Yeah, that's a good.
I see commercials about that. Like, hey, stop renting a truck. Put your pod out. Whatever.
Just
and leave it there for 2 weeks. Put your stuff in, and then we'll come pick it up, move it. And so
I know somebody that's had. They're building a new home, and they've had all their stuff in a pod for 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
And it's just been parked.
How it is.
The driveway. Yeah. But anyways, the thing I love about U-Haul is they are obviously, everybody knows U-Haul. So the know you, like you, trust you, that kind of, they're an established brand. They're a brand that's already gone through the know you, like you, trust you. But the thing I will say is they're doing a good job at using the real estate on their trucks to deliver some marketing messages. Beyond just U-Haul, this one's got a big image of, I can't even see what state this is from the angle I took it on, but it's Kentucky. So it's a big print of Kentucky with some like icons that like point out key things from Kentucky, and then the side of the truck says right equipment, lowest cost. Like just little blips. These are just little messages that like you read them and you don't like go like, oh wow, that's catchy, but like that is super clear. Like that's the right equipment, lowest cost, because they've got all these different things you can, and usually the tailgate's facing the home, so I can't see it, but usually it's like rent this truck for whatever.
Yeah, with the green, like a green star or something. Yeah, I think with U-Haul, I would love to see them rebrand. But here's the thing. When our brand refresh, I would not change. One of the iconic things about U-Haul that I absolutely love is when you go to a U-Haul store, all of the logos always represented vertically. Like their signs are always vertical. It's UHAUL, but it's vertical. It's not horizontal. And something about that feels so retro and amazing.
Yeah.
So
it's nostalgia.
It's nostalgia.
When I see a U-Haul truck, like I am taken back. Like, so my family, I lived in Memphis and Dallas and Atlanta when I was a kid, because my dad's a pilot and he moved around. So like there was times where I spent some time in some U-Haul trucks, and literally like it just takes me right back, like just sitting in they have these a lot of the trucks have these like little pets only seats in the back, but as a little kid you fit right in there.
Exactly. Again, I would tweak the brand just a little bit, and my biggest thing, I think even if they said, hey, we don't want to touch the logo at all, I'd say that's totally fine. I would just want to redesign the box trucks. Like to me, I would do away with some of the state things, because if they all have different states on them and like some type of ode to whatever's special in that particular state, I think I would just use that more for like brand real estate, like communicate a singular message. That's all I would do. That would be my biggest thing for U-Haul. But I love U-Haul.
U-Haul makes moving easier. That's what
I would just like have a consistent back, like something that's consistent for all the trucks. They're all different right now, and I think that is effective in some ways, but moving forward, I think U-Haul at some point they don't. They're a hard one because there's such a demand for their stuff that's probably they're falling into the trap of there's such a demand for our product. They almost have a monopoly. They almost have a monopoly on that market. There's other companies like Pods and different things that are coming out, but the reality of it is when you think about moving, you think about U-Haul. So, but I think every company is Blockbuster, all these types of companies. They all thought they had the corner on the market that was no one else could take this, and someone else comes along and does it better, right? Now all of a sudden, what if you did U-Haul but more tech friendly, and like you could go on an app and simply choose and order the thing, and then what if someone drove the truck to you on the day you're moving? You don't actually have to go pick it up, like different things like that, like added services. All of a sudden, I would be considering that other company, right, as an upcharge, right? Yeah. Because I always think it's a pain to have to go pick up the truck on moving day and then go drop it off after you're done, after you ate pizza with the family or whatever, or whoever's helping you move. Now I got to go take the truck back to U-Haul. It's like,
or else you're going to get charged another day.
You never want to do that. But if I had to pay an extra X amount of dollars for somebody to come pick it up and I don't even have to worry about the time, it's their responsibility, it's like, I would consider that. What if U-Haul started to get into hey, we're going to help you move space. We actually have manpower. So you can get U-Haul, and I could also order 3 or 4 people to help me move for an additional charge. That's an upsell. Yeah. Right? So what if...
It definitely is interesting. I think, we would need to sit down with the powers that be at U-Haul, because maybe... I'm guessing that their kind of core value or brand identity is built around, it's called U-Haul. Yeah. Like, you got to do it.
Sure.
Sure. So maybe they're just like, no, that's a hill we're willing to die on. We want to be the cheapest truck you can rent, but it's up to you, pal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they feed, like, some of the like, I know a lot of times on the tailgates, they've got like an advertisement for lowest, tailgate or whatever, you know what I mean?
Meaning there's the least amount of distance from the tailgate to the floor.
Yeah, exactly. So like you don't have to lift the couch as high to get it onto this truck as other trucks, or like they obviously have like slide out ramps and stuff that help you as well. And so I think that's all. I definitely think the like online booking, I'm sure they're doing that in some capacity.
Sure, I think they are. Yeah.
But it's also a franchise. Like you could, U-Hauls are often, next to like the most random businesses. It's like, we do mufflers and we also rent U-Hauls.
Yeah, exactly. Haircuts, mufflers, and U-Hauls. And groceries.
Yeah.
True. So anyway, that's great.
I think it's great when big brands rebrand. Yeah, I really do. But there's also some examples of brands that have rebranded and it's gone terrible.
Yes, 100%. So in January, this reminds me, in January of 2009, there's a story that a lot of marketers coming from the agency space, we would even talk about this as like an example of things not to do.
I think I know where you're going.
And a lot of places will utilize this, and marketers will talk about this, but it was Tropicana. So in 2009, Tropicana, which is it's a Pepsi product that really, I don't know when Pepsi bought them out. There wasn't always Pepsi, but at some point they brought them out. And
Pepsi owns so
many brands, right?
Yeah.
Mountain Dew, all the things. So they wanted to rebrand. They were feeling the tension of, hey, we want to reach a broader audience. We feel like we have a quality product. It comes from like very natural, like it's oranges. We want to tell that story more. We want to communicate the cleanliness of our process and all that stuff. And they wanted their brand to reflect that. So they essentially did a $35 million campaign called Squeeze Its Natural Masterpiece, right? They wanted to communicate the masterpiece behind their craft. They really like poured themselves into this campaign. They hired an agency, all this stuff.
I like it.
Yes, thank you. So they rebranded, and we're all used to seeing for Tropicana. We're used to seeing the epic sort of recognizable orange.
Back to because orange juice in 2009 looked different than it does now.
Yeah,
everything was still in the cartons. I mean, I think it's still there, but like everybody's kind of gone to those plastic bottles now.
It's true. So when you think of Tropicana, you think of sort of the green text, there's a little bit of a gradient there, but you think of specifically an orange with a straw slammed into it. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever tried to slam a straw into an orange. It doesn't work. And if you try to do that, you're not going to get a ton of juice out of it. But that was recognizable to them, right? A straw with an orange.
You could probably do that these days with metal straws. Everybody's got
With
their
metal straws, that's
now.
true. We
true.
could do a whole podcast on my distaste. Actually, I don't mind metal straws, but actually I do. I lie.
Whoa.
I do, because when you drink from a metal
straws and orange juice do not mix.
it has a taste. So my son has metal straws because my wife is all like, oh my gosh, the environment, we gotta like do, which is great if that's your thing. But she's more about the sustainability, not necessarily the environment. But it tastes weird. Everything has this metally sort of taste.
Well, orange juice is acidic, so it's gonna grab
Some of that.
it's gonna grab some metal flavoring.
The
as it
only
goes
thing that would be
through.
worse than a metal straw is a paper straw. Fam, if you hand me a paper straw, I'm gonna just take out a lighter, which I'm just gonna burn it.
Yeah.
Because
my apologies to all the turtles out there, but like I need like a regular like old school plastic straw.
a paper
I
straw.
gotta chew on
Where
it.
my turtles at?
I can't have a straw that I can't bite into. And
Right.
I can't bite into a metal straw; it'll hurt. I can't bite into a paper straw. I'll just take a bite out.
There you have it, folks. Breaking news. By the time you're done with your drink, the straw is disintegrating in your mouth, and I hate that. Anyway, Tropicana, they rebranded to a very cleanly look. We're gonna put a picture up for all of our listeners who are listening and watching at the same time. But it's this really white box. It's box juice at this point. Haven't gone to the plastic bottles. They take the Tropicana, they make it flat, which was big at that time. It was around 2009, right? So everything was going
We
flat.
talked about this when we talked about iPhones.
Yes, everything was going flat.
Yeah. Yep.
They take away the gradient. They take away the arc, the arch that was on the text. They have this flat green color. It's going vertical across the whole container of juice, right? Nice and big. And they're like, certainly, people are going to recognize this. And they move away from the orange with the straw and simply have a glass of orange juice.
Right.
And then one of the other changes was that on the actual lid itself, they went from a typical orange lid and they made that lid a little orange.
Right. Which cost extra.
It costs extra to produce, but I like that change. To me, that's
No, I like
clever.
that one.
It's fun, but at the end of the day, the biggest things and the biggest hiccups for them were confusion at the grocery store.
Yeah.
People couldn't find their new product because, again, they were trained to look for a certain thing.
Yeah.
Which is why, if you're a massive organization, big ships do not turn quickly.
Yep.
You have more to lose the bigger you are,
Yeah.
and you need to be careful when you're rebranding.
Right.
And they lost connection, so the nostalgia was gone.
Yeah.
It felt like, oh, you just ditched all this heritage and history for this new cool thing.
Yeah.
And the temptation is always, hey, the grass is greener on the other side. But and the reality is like sometimes you just need to refresh your brand, not redesign it.
Yeah, they went too far.
They went a little bit too far. And then
I remember like looking at the actual packaging, it almost, because we talked about blands a while ago.
correct.
And
Which is, just
particularly
to clarify, a bland is just a text-driven logo. It's very simple.
brand that purposefully leans into a minimalist
Nothing.
icon, you
Nothingness.
Yeah, their symbols are very minimal. And the idea, but the thing that it looked like to me was it almost looked like a white label product, like the store brand orange juice.
Yep.
Like if it wasn't for the little orange knob, and like some other things, which you might not even see, frankly, it's not like it's a big thing that you're going to catch a lot of contrast on it or anything. It's just a change in shape. So yeah, I think that was the thing, is people were just confused when they went to the grocery store shelves.
Right.
And they just like, well, where's my Tropicana? Okay, well, I'm gonna go. But the thing is if you are in the habit of going to that spot, grabbing the Tropicana, and all of a sudden you're like, is this Tropicana? You start looking around. Looking around is bad if you're the market leader, because they're gonna start looking at the prices.
Yep.
They're gonna start looking at the like things that the other packaging is saying and stuff. So what could have been just a habit purchase, like every time I grab the Tropicana, now they've considered other things. You force them into consideration, which is very dangerous, perhaps. And in this case,
it led to a significant decline in sales. And the months following the rebrand, essentially Tropicana dropped by 20%, while competitors saw increase, which led to an estimated roughly around $30 million of loss. So after they recognized, okay, we made a mistake here, we got to figure out what to do, they backpedaled and quickly reverted to the original branding.
Right.
And then I think later on, if I'm not mistaken, they actually did a refresh.
Sure.
But it was very like they stuck to everything. They just cleaned everything up a bit. And I've mentioned this agency before, but JKR Global.
Okay.
Go to jkrglobal.com. It's Jones, Knowles, and Ritchie.
Yeah, they're one of the big boys.
They're one of the big boys, and they are the best, in my opinion. They are the best to do it with refreshing a logo while keeping its identity. To me, like, there's no one who comes in comparison. They've refreshed Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King. They did planters, the seeds, the nuts and stuff.
Yeah, they
did that one, and it was phenomenal because everything that they do is recognizable. When they show you the tin of almonds or whatever, you're like, that's planters.
Right.
But you can tell that it's been redesigned.
Yeah.
And it's powerful and that's the importance also of hiring people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And aren't just trying to like change things for the sake of change. A good leader, a good designer doesn't just go into a room and try to change things because they try to understand the root of the issues, right? A doctor goes in to diagnose a problem, not just put a Band-Aid on it. And, you know, not saying that the agency that did that rebrand for Tropicana was just putting a Band-Aid on it, but they clearly, they were very ambitious and didn't have the discernment to say, hey, let's try to keep some of the beauty that you have here, right? Like, you guys are winning. You guys are succeeding. Our job is to make revisions and refreshments to your brand without taking away from it. And in that case, in 2009, it took a little bit too much away.
Interesting. And I think these are the reason that we bring up these more like well-known brands. It's because these are things that we all encounter every day. We all know who U-Haul is. We all know who Tropicana is. And we can use this as an example to help you understand how branding is so important, even for your local service company. And so we've looked at an example of like, hey, U-Haul probably could be game for a refresh. You know, I mean, to my knowledge, they have not refreshed at all in my lifetime. You know, probably the biggest refresh they did in my lifetime is starting to do the states things on the side of the truck.
Same.
At this point, it's kind of like, yeah, we get it. You know, so that would be ripe for a rebrand. And Tropicana, obviously, they did the wrong thing in that they lost their brand identity along the way. They over refreshed. In fact, they didn't refresh. They kind of just said, other than we're gonna keep the color green, but other than that, everything's out the window.
Exactly.
Okay, I have another example because one of the things that I think is a common example for, or a common scenario for business owners is, okay, but I've got a few trucks on the road, or maybe I'm just starting my business. Why do I have to think about brand so much? You know, like why do I have to put all this thought into brand?
Sure.
And, you know, I would say, well, one thing, if you're just starting out, brand is not day one for you. You know what I mean? Like day one is delivering good services to your network and like starting to build up a reputation.
Go back to
last part of branding. You know, your reputation is part of your brand, but you don't need to establish like dial in. But there comes a point, we talked about this, where you got to grow up and you got to become a brand. You got to adopt a brand mentality.
I was just going to say, go back to last week's episode and read those S's.
Exactly.
And you just might not be at the point where you're ready to jump full into branding.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we did a whole episode on scaling. We did a whole episode on branding for local businesses, and you can certainly listen to those. The example is one that, again, one everybody knows. I want to talk about YETI. The common, you might know them from their Tumbler, Rambler glasses. But YETI was founded in 2006 by two brothers, Roy and Ryan Siders, in Austin, Texas. And they ran into a problem. Their problem was that the coolers that they were using for their hunting and fishing trips weren't holding up to what they needed them to. And they just weren't keeping stuff cold long enough. So they decided to make a cooler. And they built it with, you know, premium plastic, double thick walls, insulation, rubber gaskets around the top, and a big latch that really held it tight, so that as much as possible it kept things colder longer, and you could beat it up and it was still good to go.
Right.
So this is 2006 when they had this idea. The first product launched, in multiple iterations, but between then and 2008, the Tundra cooler was introduced, and it quickly became a fan favorite amongst hunters, and they would go to different, trade shows and conventions and stuff, and sell their coolers. And then they eventually got to the point where they started sponsoring outdoorsmen with their coolers, and that established their brand as a reliable, high quality product. And then in 2008, they realized, okay, we can actually, we're now a name brand.
Yep.
In the outdoor cooler enthusiast space.
Sure.
So but it's expensive. So they realized there was an opportunity for some other products. And so they introduced the hopper, a soft-sided container. So this is an example of a brand establishing their niche.
Yep.
We create really high quality coolers, owning that niche for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now that's fast, but that's a national company, so that's very fast. But for a local company, 4 years can be a very long time. You can make a lot of ground in that, and obviously you can nationally too, but it's a little more rare. So they introduced the hopper, which is their soft-sided, and then 2 years later they came out with the Ramblers.
Yep.
And they essentially started to become like a status symbol and lifestyle brand, and really leaned into that. But by 10 years into the company, they were doing over $400 million in annual revenue.
Wow.
Close to 500 actually. And then in 2018 they went public, and then started really leaning into the lifestyle brand thing, coming out with chairs and blankets, dog bowls, they wine glasses, a bunch of just really coming out with all these products because they have an established customer base. And one of the things that they really did well is that you can customize them too. You can, because of all the different the cups were all metal, and they were oftentimes powder coated. You could laser engrave them and do these really cool designs, whether it's a brand or somebody's name for like a gift, or different scenarios. 2020, they actually got even bigger. They crushed it in 2020 because what was everybody doing? They were outdoors. They were socially distancing. They were having backyard parties or just hanging out in their backyard with their friends. The same, same way everybody all of a sudden got a new hardscaping in their backyard or whatever, because 2020 all of a sudden, hey, we're outdoors now, and people had to not be at their job, and they realized, oh, the world's a beautiful place. I like it out here. And so they did really well. Now, fast forward to today, the market has kind of normalized. That bump from COVID worldwide pandemic situation has kind of normalized a little bit. They've also had some product recalls, but they're still growing year over year. And obviously everybody
competitors too, like
tons of competitors.
Arctic to me is probably one of their biggest competitors, which is their
Arctic kind of came into the market as like, we are almost YETI.
Yeah, we're almost YETI, slightly cheaper, more affordable. But then there's
all kinds of knockoffs that are like nothing like YETI.
Yeah. The knockoffs are kind of just like in their own league. I feel like Arctic did a good job as like a actual marketplace competitor versus like some China.
You want to just be a step down. But then other companies have come in, like Stanley, the classic coffee, go to work with your big green
Stanley.
I've actually got one at my desk just because I love those Stanley, like the idea of like being on a construction site, sitting on an I-beam, pouring your cup of coffee, in your Stanley, like that's like an image imprinted into my mind. But yeah, they've rolled out. Are they even higher priced yet? I mean, they look premium, super premium.
They look premium. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but like Stanley's kind of, that's become like the go-to soccer mom YETI, if you will. But that's funny. They've almost become like Kleenex. Tissues, Kleenex, YETI. Just any cup is a YETI.
Yeti.
Any metal cup is a YETI now. So, anyways, I went on their website and I love like their tagline is built for the wild, you know, so that's like aspirational identity. Like if you own a Yeti, you are, you're out there, you're doing things, you're in the wild,
Right.
you know. In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build the hard coolers we'd use every day. Since we've expanded, we've never given up on our mission to build products to improve your time in the wild. And I love it because their website is full of pictures of like cowboys and hunters and surfers and like people camping on the beach. You know, there's nobody hosting a party.
Yeah.
Funny enough, but like that's probably like the thing people use it for. But then of course they've got, you know, you can customize it, you can put names on it. I don't know. Yeti is a great example of a company that started super niche, knew that they do one thing well, and over time they scaled and expanded into more things, you know, and yet that logo has never changed. Yeti.
Yeah. They're a prime example of that. I love that example, and I think when it comes to aspirational marketing, it's a good reminder to, as a local service provider, you can still play to the aspirational emotions of people, right? So like if people are in their backyard with Yetis and sipping wine, they're not hunters, they're not cowboys, they're not doing all that stuff, but there's something inside of them that resonates with this idea of I'm made to be outside. I'm made for the outdoors. You know what I mean? And that little bit of like emotion inside of them Yeti plays to, and it attracts people. And you can do that as a local service provider. I mean, we gave examples of that last week.
Yeah.
You know, really good examples. We kept changing the name of each. You remember, like, of Joe, whatever. We kept changing his company name. So go listen to that episode, too. It's just, I think it could be powerful playing to people's emotions.
Yeah. I think there is something just plain wrong about this idea of homeowners in particular, renters too. I mean, it's not exclusive to homeowners, but the American people being left with fewer options for services, or feeling like there's fewer options, you know, with less kids wanting to go into the trades, which I think that tide might be turning a little bit. It's hard to tell. Like, I definitely hear people talking about it, but like with, you know, more and more companies like merging and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and focusing on sales and like sleazier tactics, not delivering as much value, not caring as much about the individual and more about what your like kind of package is, like, you know, put you in a box like, oh, you fit our, you know, silver package, you know, versus like, what exactly do you need? Because there's some things that maybe you don't need, and there's some things that you definitely do need. I'm concerned about that. And, I'm super motivated right now. Like, I want to be part of the change. You know, obviously we have built a nice little business for ourselves here, helping companies, but I just feel like there's more that we can do. And I'm literally like racking my brain, like, what's next? I mean, Pete, I spent a significant portion of my time this morning thinking, should I write a book? Like, is that the way to do it? Like, I don't know. Like, do you write a book? At least like people who read books or listen to books can like tap into the knowledge that we're talking about here and like get a little bit more tactical and execution off of that. But like, that's where I'm at. I'm like, how do we help more local service companies? Because I legitimately think this is how we can like help make the world a better place.
Yeah, man, there's so much opportunity for local. Like you said it at the beginning, and I'll close with this. Let's put the service back in local service providers. Serve people, right? Your heart in it is what's going to set you apart from the big guys. Is that your heart in it is to help people solve problems. You know, you can't be a great local service provider if your intentions and motivations are not to help people solve everyday problems. And man, that will bleed into your branding. That will bleed into the visual aspect of your branding, but also just your messaging, your brand identity, all those things. And we want to help you do it here at Brand Nerd. So, man, we'd love to obviously work with whoever's listening to this, but make sure you send this episode to someone who comes to mind as you think about local service providers, because it will be beneficial to them. And this podcast is meant for that person specifically.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So I mean, share your thoughts on this episode with us. You can do it on YouTube in the comments. You can do it. You can go to bnpod.com and leave us a voice message through Spotify. You can email us at hello@bnpod.com. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok.
At Deploy the Nerds.
At Deploy the Nerds. Yep. Share this episode.
Yes.
Rate and review. So I've had a number of people, obviously this is anecdotal, but I've had a number of people go, hey, I finally checked out the podcast. It's really good. Yeah. If you're one of those people that's been listening, you're like, hey, this is really good. The thing you can do to help us is, of course, leave us a review. It's the thing that everybody asks you to do. I know, but seriously, just take a moment, because we're trying to help people here, and I hope you'll help us on this journey. So anyways, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Brand Nerd Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again on the next episode, and until then, stay curious.
If you enjoyed this Brand Nerd Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.